The golden chandeliers sparkled above, casting a cold glow across the billionaire's grand mansion. Expensive laughter echoed from polished marble halls, but in one corner a little white boy sat alone, just 10 years old, his pant leg folded neatly where his missing limb should have been. Surrounded by toys worth more than some families earned in a lifetime, he had no one to play with. Not a single child dared to sit beside him. Some whispered, "He's broken." Others laughed quietly, hiding their cruelty behind designer clothes and champagne glasses. His father, a powerful man, thought wealth could buy everything, but it could never buy friendship. And just when it seemed the boy's world would remain cold and empty forever, a poor black girl, only 9 years old, walked through those gates. Her clothes were faded, her shoes worn thin, but her spirit shone brighter than all the chandeliers above. She looked at him, not with pity, not with mockery, but with courage and kindness. What happened next would shock everyone in that mansion. Backhand index pointing right if you believe no child should ever be left behind because of who they are or what they've lost. Hit like right now and subscribe. Because silence only protects the cruel, and this story deserves to be heard. By daylight, the billionaire's estate looked like something out of a dream. Perfectly trimmed gardens, fountains spraying into the air like liquid diamonds, and walls so high they seemed built not to keep people safe, but to keep the world out. Inside, young William, the billionaire's son, lived in a kind of golden cage. William was only 10, but his life had already been shaped by tragedy. A terrible car accident had taken his left leg 2 years earlier. His father spared no expense to fit him with the finest prosthetic money could buy, yet William rarely wore it. It wasn't the missing limb that weighed him down most. It was the stares, the whispers, the way children avoided him. Toys stacked to the ceiling gathered dust untouched. Every room was filled with treasures, but his heart was filled with silence. At night, William would press his face to the massive glass windows, staring out at the world beyond. He watched children running in the distance, their laughter carried faintly on the wind. He whispered to himself, "I'd give all of this just to be with them." Meanwhile, not far from the mansion's gates, life was very different. In the crowded streets of the poorer quarter, lived a girl named Amara. She was only 9, her dark skin glowing with youthful strength, her eyes bright with curiosity. Her mother worked long hours cleaning homes, while Amara often helped sell fruits at a roadside stand. They didn't have much, a leaky roof, second-hand clothes, bread that sometimes ran out before the end of the week. But they had something William never tasted, closeness. Every morning, Amara would laugh with neighbors, chase her younger siblings through narrow alleys, and carry hope in her heart that tomorrow might be kinder. Her small joys were simple but powerful. The smell of roasted corn, the sound of old songs on a crackling radio, the warmth of her mother's hug after a long day. But even in her innocence, Amara noticed the divide. Some children mocked her clothes. Others turned away when she passed. She had grown used to being the poor girl, but she carried herself with dignity, her chin raised, as if to say, "My worth is not measured by what I wear." 2 worlds, so close yet so far. A boy drowning in loneliness behind golden gates. A girl climbing over life's struggles with courage. And then came the day their paths crossed. William's father had planned yet another grand gathering. The lawn was decorated with white silk tents, music floated in the air, and rows of crystal glasses clinked as powerful guests toasted their own importance. Dozens of children, dressed in luxury, were herded together to entertain William. But when he tried to join them, silence fell. One boy sneered, "You can't even run. Why would we play with you?" Laughter rippled through the group, cruel and sharp. William's face burned, his one leg trembling as he backed away. And just beyond the iron gates, Amara happened to be walking past with a basket of fruit in her hands. She stopped frozen, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, everything else, the tents, the music, the mocking laughter, seemed to vanish. It was the first time anyone had looked at William not as a broken boy, but simply as a boy. But what happened next, the narrator's voice lowers, would turn that mansion upside down, and no one was prepared for it. If you're still watching, don't forget to hit like, because what's about to unfold will shake you. At first, Amara didn't move. She stood at the gate, her basket of fruit digging into her arms, her eyes fixed on the boy who sat apart from the others. She saw the way the children laughed at him, the way his face sank lower with every cruel word. Something stirred inside her. The same fire that always burned when she saw injustice, even in the smallest forms. She pushed the gate gently, and to her surprise, it creaked open. A guard, distracted by the music and chatter of the guests, barely noticed her small figure slipping inside. William looked up, startled, as she approached. Her clothes were worn, her shoes patched, but her gaze was steady. "Hi," she said softly, holding out a small apple from her basket. "Want to play?" For a moment, silence hung heavy. The other children snickered, whispering about the poor girl who dared to walk into their perfect circle. But William's eyes lit up in a way they hadn't in years. Slowly, he reached for the apple. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the shock of being seen. And for the first time, a smile tugged at his lips. "Who even let her in?" one girl hissed, her silk dress glittering under the lights. "She smells like the street." A boy added with a cruel laugh. "What's next? Are we supposed to share our food with beggars?" The group erupted into giggles. Their words hit like stones, but Amara didn't flinch. She had heard far worse in her life. She simply stood taller, her small shoulders squared. "Maybe you're too scared to play with him," she said firmly. "But I'm not." The laughter faltered. Some children gasped, others whispered in shock. No one had ever spoken back like that, not in this house, not in front of these families. William's heart raced. He wasn't used to anyone defending him, least of all a stranger. He whispered, almost afraid, "They'll be angry." Amara glanced at him and smiled. "Let them." The parents soon noticed. From across the lawn, women in glittering jewelry frowned, men in sharp suits raised their eyebrows. A poor black girl, inside their circle, standing with the billionaire's son? It was unthinkable. One of the mothers walked over, her perfume heavy in the air. She looked Amara up and down with disdain. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with false kindness, "you don't belong here. This is a private gathering." Amara clutched her basket tightly. She wanted to retreat, but when she glanced at William, his eyes silently begging her not to leave, she found her strength again. "I'm just playing with him," she answered quietly. The woman's smile vanished. "Children," she announced loudly so everyone could hear, "don't touch her. She's not one of us." The children obeyed instantly, stepping back, forming a circle that excluded Amara and William as if they were contagious. William's chest tightened. He hated this feeling, being treated as less than human. But this time, he wasn't alone. As the night deepened, the games began, relay races, dancing, laughter that filled the estate. But whenever William tried to join, someone blocked him. "You can't run with one leg. You'll just slow us down. Why don't you sit and watch? That's all you're good for." Each jab cut deeper than the last. William's face flushed with shame, tears threatening to fall. He almost wished Amara hadn't come, because now she had to see how broken he was. But Amara stepped into the center of the lawn. She dropped her basket, planted her feet, and shouted, "I'll be his team. Just me and him, against all of you." Gasps erupted. The adults chuckled in disbelief. "How ridiculous," one man sneered. But Amara's voice didn't waver. "Unless you're afraid, we'll beat you." Something shifted. For the first time, William didn't feel like the weak one. He felt like someone worth fighting for. The children didn't accept her game. Instead, they turned it into a spectacle. They gathered, whispering, pointing, until finally one boy shoved William hard. "Prove you can play, then. Run," he shouted. William stumbled, falling to the ground, his palms scraping against the marble tiles. Laughter exploded around him, louder than ever, crueler than ever. Amara dropped to her knees, helping him up, her voice fierce. "Don't you dare laugh at him." But the crowd only roared louder. Some adults even smirked, as if this humiliation were nothing more than entertainment. William's chest heaved. His heart pounded. He wanted to disappear. And then something inside him snapped. He pulled himself up, one leg shaking, eyes blazing with tears and rage. He gripped Amara's hand tightly. For the first time, he shouted back, "Stop laughing at me." His voice cracked, but it carried across the lawn like thunder. "I'm not broken." The crowd fell silent. Even the music seemed to pause. In that stillness, Amara raised their joined hands high, like champions. But standing against a room full of power had consequences. And what happened next would change both their lives forever. You think they've already suffered enough. Just wait. The cruelest twist is still coming. Don't miss it. Hit subscribe so you never turn away when the truth gets uncomfortable. The silence after William's cry was sharp enough to cut glass. His voice, trembling yet powerful, still echoed against the mansion walls. For the first time, the cruel laughter had stopped. Dozens of wealthy eyes turned toward him, not in pity now, but in shock. The boy who was supposed to stay silent had spoken. But silence didn't last long. One of the fathers, a tall man with a silver watch and cold eyes, broke into a mocking clap. "Bravo," he sneered. The cripple finally found his voice. A ripple of laughter returned, sharper, uglier than before. William's face burned red, his chest rising and falling like a storm about to break. Amara stepped forward, planting herself between William and the crowd. Her small body trembled, but her eyes were fire. "Don't call him that," she said firmly. "He's not broken. He's braver than all of you." Gasps filled the air. A child talking back to adults. In this house? Unthinkable. The man's face hardened. "And who are you, little street rat, to speak here? You don't belong in this world. You don't belong in this house." He turned to the guards. "Remove her." The guards hesitated, but began to move forward. William panicked. "No," he shouted, clutching Amara's hand. "Don't touch her." The scene descended into chaos. Children whispering, adults shouting, music screeching to a halt. William's heart pounded in his ears, his vision blurring with tears. He felt like he was drowning, trapped in a nightmare he couldn't escape. Hands trembling, voices overlapping, the cold marble against his scraped palms. The sting of humiliation sharper than any physical wound. He wanted to disappear. But when he looked at Amara, standing tall, refusing to bow, he realized he couldn't. Something inside him broke free. "No!" William roared, his voice cracking with rage and pain. "You don't get to tell me who my friend is. You don't get to decide who belongs." The lawn froze. No one moved. And then, a deeper voice cut through the air. It was William's father. The billionaire himself had arrived, his sharp suit gleaming under the lights, his presence commanding instant silence. All eyes turned to him. "What is going on here?" His tone was low, dangerous. The silver watch man stepped forward. "Your son, he's embarrassing you. And this girl," he spat the word like poison, "doesn't belong in your world. We were only protecting your image." But the billionaire's eyes didn't land on the girl. They landed on his son. William stood there, one leg trembling, eyes wet but fierce, clutching Amara's hand as if letting go meant losing everything. And in that moment, the billionaire saw something he hadn't noticed in years: life in his son's eyes. Not emptiness, not loneliness, but courage. "Protecting my image?" the billionaire repeated slowly. His gaze sharpened, slicing through the crowd. "You all came here to flatter me, to sip my wine, to bask in my wealth. But not one of you thought to stand by my son." The crowd shifted uneasily. The silver watch man stammered. We only meant." "Enough!" The billionaire's voice thundered. "You humiliated him. You humiliated a child. And you dare call yourselves better?" A heavy silence fell. The arrogance drained from the guests' faces, replaced with discomfort, even shame. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the billionaire turned to Amara. "And you," he said, his voice softening. "You stood up for him when no one else did. You reminded me of something money can't buy. Loyalty, friendship, dignity." He bent down, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "William, if she is your friend, then she belongs here more than anyone else." Tears streamed down William's cheeks. He clutched his father's arm with one hand and Amara's with the other. For the first time, he felt whole. Amara smiled, not out of victory but relief. She hadn't just defended him. She had freed him. The guests looked on, their jeweled necklaces and golden watches suddenly meaningless. They had been exposed, their cruelty laid bare under the chandelier's merciless glow. And as William and Amara stood hand in hand, the boy who had once been invisible was no longer hidden. But what happened after this night, the narrator's voice drops, would ripple far beyond the mansion walls and leave scars no money could erase. If this moment made your heart race, hit like, because every voice raised against cruelty matters. The party ended in a silence no one had expected. The chandeliers still glowed, the music still hummed faintly in the background, but the arrogance that once filled the air had been shattered. Guests slipped away quietly, their laughter replaced by shame. William remained on the lawn, his small hands still locked with Amara's. For years, he had felt like an object in a glass case, looked at, pitted, but never touched. Tonight, that case had cracked. His father stood beside him, no longer the distant, untouchable man of wealth, but simply a father who had nearly forgotten what his son needed most. Not protection, not gifts, but someone who believed in him. The billionaire bent down, whispering, "I'm proud of you, son." Those words, simple yet powerful, washed over William like sunlight after endless winter. For the first time, he believed them. Amara smiled quietly, her eyes reflecting both relief and pride. She didn't need thanks. She didn't need applause. She had done what was right, and in doing so, she had changed a boy's world. But outside the gates, whispers spread. Some guests muttered about scandal, about how the evening had been ruined. Others, though, spoke differently. They remembered the girl's courage. They thought of their own children. And in the weeks that followed, the story of that night grew larger than the mansion itself. It became a mirror, reflecting back the cruelty of class and the blindness of privilege. William and Amara continued to meet, their friendship stronger than gold. He taught her chess on polished wooden boards. She taught him street games played with pebbles and chalk. They laughed together in ways that no fortune could buy. And though the mansion's walls remained high, William no longer felt trapped inside them. Because now he had a friend who saw him. Not his leg, not his father's wealth, but him. The camera lingers on the empty lawn, the echoes of cruel laughter replaced by the memory of a child's voice shouting, "I'm not broken." And the narrator asks, if you had been there that night, would you have laughed with the crowd, stayed silent, or stood up for the lonely boy and the brave girl? This story isn't just theirs, it's ours. If it moved you, share it. Because silence protects the cruel, but stories like this give strength to the kind.